Okay, today we're going to talk about structuring a successful sales call. My name is Bill Rice. I'm with Kaleido, and as always, we are talking about sales in the context of lead generation. So typically, generating leads, getting an inbound lead, or maybe you're buying leads. But in all cases, we're talking about sales within the context of lead generation. So your sales will differ if you're doing referrals or maybe you're doing outbound sales, but we're talking in the context of receiving an inbound lead. Either you're buying that lead or you're actually generating it itself into the website. So that's the backdrop of this. And what I want to talk about today is how to actually structure that successful sales call. Because once you actually get them on the phone, you've done the things you need to do with outreach, maybe some email drip campaigns and follow-ups, maybe several calls, voicemail in there. Ultimately, you've gotten them on the phone, and this is how I like to structure my sales calls and the things that I want to accomplish. I'm a big proponent of this. This should be incorporated within a sales script. So these 11 things that I'm going to talk about today should be actually captured in a sales script with examples for you to follow, to incorporate, to practice, so that these become really natural when you're on the phone. And of course, you have this script to be able to recall or to reference and be able to use these techniques over and over again. If you want my sales script specifically, just reach out in the comments wherever you're seeing this, or direct message me on the platform that you're seeing this, and I'll do my best to get you a copy of those or tell you where you can actually download them. So let's get into it. Again, these are the 11 steps that I want to have within sort of my successful flow. Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, has a great approach that he teaches, the straight line. So this is kind of, in essence, my perfect path or my straight line path in these type of sales. So number one, we're going to start with just some intelligence gathering. The nice thing is, in opening the conversation, it should be relatively easy for you, because in the context of this type of sales, they've actually inquired with you, or you've purchased a lead where they've inquired or want to be matched to, let's say, a lender or an insurance agent or a solar installer. So their intent and their inquiry is actually with you. So it's really easy to start this intelligence gathering with what I like to talk, and again, pulling from another expert in their area, Chris Voss, and Never Split the Difference is a book that he did. He talks about calibrated questions. So that's, a lot of times we talk about open-ended question. I like his context of calibrating questions. So they came in with some intent, and so we're going to start our intelligence gathering or our calibrated questions to actually figure out where their brain is in this context. So let's say they come in and they tell you in this inbound inquiry that they're interested in refinancing. Well, we don't know if they're refinancing because they just heard that rates are low and they're interested in maybe getting a lower rate in payment, or maybe they're in some sort of debt dilemma, and they've heard that you potentially leverage your equity, home values are up, and so maybe they can leverage their equity to get out of their debt conundrum and do some debt consolidation and that sort of thing. Or maybe they've just been dreaming about, just got out of the pandemic. They've been dreaming about putting that in-ground pool back there in case they get locked down again. They'll have something fun to do. And so they want to do a major home improvement, and they want to, again, refinance and do sort of a home equity cash out type refinance. So these calibrating questions are what you want to bring to the table right off the bat. So, hey, Bob, this is Bill from Hometown Lender, just reaching out to follow up on your inquiry. It looks like you were looking for some rate quotes on home refinancing, or let's say purchase, whatever the case may be. Just kind of curious, what exactly were you looking for, or what caused you to do a search and do this inquiry? What are you looking to accomplish? And again, these calibrating questions so you can kind of figure out where they are. And of course, since they made the inquiry, oftentimes it's really easy to start the conversation because it's empathetic, and you're actually all these questions are actually about them and supporting them, not driving towards the sale. Second piece of this, again, if you've listened to any of my sales training, I'm a big fan of silence. So after each time you ask these calibrating questions, make sure you leave a lot of room for silence. So ask a specific calibrating or open-ended question, and then go silent and start listening. And so this goes to the second component of a successful call, which is active listening. So you need to actually, within your script, give yourself notes to tell you to pause. Sometimes as a salesperson, we talk fast, we're aggressive, and we just kind of blow through the client. We never give them space and air to actually tell us explicitly what they're looking for or why they inquired, or maybe even some questions that they have before they could even get into a buying mode. So a couple things in active listening that can help you is, one, make note of the silence within your script. Two, when you're practicing, get in the habit of affirming and kind of creating affirming behaviors when you're interacting with somebody. So you can even do this with friends and family as they're telling you a story. You're doing, yeah, oh yeah, I get it. Oh, I can see how that could happen. Or yeah, oh, that's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. Oh yeah, you totally, you've got it. You understand. So again, we're using these ahs and ums and these little sort of behavioral and even verbal, because a lot of times you're on the phone, right? They may not be able to see you, although in this age, a lot of times we're doing a Zoom call, but giving those little verbal cues that you are paying attention and that you're engaged. Another thing that's helpful is to simply have that legal pad in front of you, pen and paper, and actually take notes. So a lot of times when people are taking notes, they're actually thinking, oh, I need to write down everything that's important and track this. I actually teach note-taking in a little bit of a different way. I want you just sort of jotting, and it'll keep you engaged and active in the conversation. Sometimes I will jot down words that they use over and over, concepts that they use. So I'm actually in there putting down little notes that will keep me quiet and listening, right? So if they say something, I want to jump in and interrupt them because I've got to point to that. I'm going to write down that instead. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a technique here in a second, but I'm going to write that down. If they use a type of word over and over again, or they use a certain type of tonality or language, I might make a note of that because I want to start mirroring their tonality, their excitement level, their energy level. And then that last point of where I'm noting things that I want to come back to, this is really powerful. If you let them talk, you don't interrupt them, they get to the end. And then your opening line, I found this to be a really powerful technique to really draw them in and build trust, is your opening line after they're finished talking is like, hey, I want to jump back to a thing that you said just a couple of minutes ago, or a point that you made just a few back. I want to just sort of go back a little bit, and then you reference that and you bring something that they've already run past. So it automatically sort of triggers that brain, their brain, and says, oh, they were listening. Man, I even forgot that I said that, but they're actually trying to answer that part of the question. And then you jump back into their conversation, and then you move back to the current point in the conversation. So you may make 2 or 3 points that they've long blown through, but it, again, reassures them that you're actively listening. It also allows you, when you're listening, to understand how their logic and their frame is built, right? So they come into that call, or they come into that product with a certain frame of reference, certain biases, and a certain sort of line of logic. Maybe Uncle Bob told them everything they need to know about mortgages, right? You want to know that, and you want to understand that. And then the last thing that you're doing in this active listening process is looking for the why, because the why is what you're going to sort of take and run with when you get into that emotional state. So the third phase of this is starting with logic. So as you're actively listening, you want to start with logic. You want to start with kind of the bare bone facts, sort of uncontested. Oh, okay. So you want to look for a refinance. So a couple things that we need to do is we need to, figure out sort of if you qualify, the types of products you would potentially qualify, the rates, so you want to sort of start, because again, as you reach out to them, even though they inquire, there's probably some defensiveness that you need to break down and some salesy stuff you need to break down. So you don't want to just jump in with sales emotion. You want to jump in with, hey, here are a couple things that we're going to need to do, or here's how this works, or here's how we can potentially, get you qualified. So use a very logical starting point, very even-keeled, slow, laying out the facts, laying out the premise, but you don't want to jump in with that emotion. It's easy for us as salespeople to get hyped, get over emotion, and that can really shut down a prospect if you get excited before they get excited, right? Then, as you're going through that logic and you're going through what they're, as you took those notes, that maybe the why, you're going to start to create enthusiasm, right? So one of the tricks that I like to do is really, as I'm going through some of this questioning and intelligence gathering, it's a technique that I learned back in my military days. When I was an interrogator and an interviewer, they taught us to use the concepts of testing themes, right? So we're putting in these themes along the way. Well, are you looking to do this, or have you thought about that? And you're trying to figure out, again, calibrating questions is sort of the same type of technique, a different name for it. But by doing this, you're sort of testing this black box that is the prospect or the customer and figuring out where they are. And as you're watching body language or you're listening to their tonality, when you start to hear them get excited, that's when you want to start to build on the emotion. You want to start to create that enthusiasm where you see them starting to get excited. That's when you want to start fanning the flames. And one of the ways that you can fan the flames is the fifth step in this, is really starting to lock into and establish the why. And we're going to talk about and begin to frame the rest of my conversation around that why. Now, you may stray away from it because, again, ideally we're doing this straight line, but from time to time you're going to go off into tangents, you're going to stray away, but you're going to route them back into that why once you've locked into it, and that's going to build momentum. That's going to build enthusiasm. And then that's going to get you to sort of phase 6, where you're beginning to transfer that emotion, right? So they're excited, you're actually fanning the flame, and you're transferring emotion. You're getting the prospect excited about their why and starting to build confidence that you can deliver the why they're looking for, right? So that transference of emotion, like you're all excited about your product, right? You understand it, you believe in it, you believe in yourself, you believe in your product, you believe in the company. Those are just foundational elements that you should have. And you're trying to build that same certainty or level of confidence and certainty in the prospect. And so that's the emotion that we're starting to transfer in this phase 6. Then, as we start to get a little emotion building, we're starting to have that transference happen. The next thing we need to do is some forward visioning. We need to start to help the prospect to see a better future by buying, right? Oh, I know you're looking for this house like this. I could totally see you guys living in such and such neighborhood. With the family, the schools there are awesome. I mean, it's just going to be an incredible foundation for your kids. So you're starting to give them a future vision, a better future, better vision for what this purchase will bring. Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine you get the solar panels up there. Your energy bill is going to go down so much, and as a result, those savings, what you could do, what you could actually add, you can turn those savings into other home improvements and just really do some incredible things by doing this. So again, you want to do this. You want to then go into this future visioning. This helps to build that certainty of delivery too, right? They get a sense of, no, my why, what I came for is real and it's realizable, and this is the person who can do that, and this is the company who can do this, and this is the product that will get me there. Now, this 8th phase, this is something that probably needs to be said, but probably shouldn't be overemphasized. And that is the concept of the trial close. A lot of times the trial close is taught as a real sort of aggressive technique to try to push them over and get that trigger going. I think trial closes, if done right, if you go through the rest of this, you've started with logic, you build some enthusiasm, you lock into and frame the why, and then you start to transfer that emotion. They get excited. You start to then frame up and forward vision with them. Then they're going to give you all the buying signals you need. It's going to be really clear, the urgency. You're going to have built up a stronger need probably than they even came in with, and a stronger urgency. So at this point, ideally, they're going to start giving you the buying signals. They might even start to push you forward. Okay, what do I need to do next, right? That's the kind of things that you want to hear out of the prospect. But it bears saying that in this phase, you're starting to look for those buying signals, potentially doing some trial closes. Hey, so is this something we should, start now so that we can get you into that house by such and such date? So you can do some of those things, but again, I wouldn't overemphasize the concept of the trial close. And instead, at this point, you should be getting to the area where people are kind of giving you those buying signals and indications, and maybe even pushing you a little bit. Then phase 9, and this is really important, it's really clarifying the deal, right? You want to sort of back up for a moment and go through and confirm the benefits, establish the path forward, and you're confirming the deal. It's like, okay, hey, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about an FHA. It looks like you've definitely got what you need as far as down payment. This is going to take, X amount of days, but we need to kind of get it started now so that we can get this stuff happening. We can get the appraisal in and those sorts of things. And here's what's going to happen next. We're going to do this, and then this, and then this, and then there's going to be this takes place, and then ultimately we should be able to achieve getting into your new home by such and such date. And then ultimately we're going to do the close. It's like, okay, we've gone ahead and got the application. We've got you qualified. The next step is I'm going to send you some stuff, and you're going to go ahead and sign that with DocuSign, and we're going to get this process all going. So you're going to define that close. It's really important not only to have a script through here, but probably the things you need to practice the most is that open intelligence gathering phase and this close. This should be scripted. You should know the moment you have a close, the moment you get to that point, you know exactly, and practice over and over again. This needs to be really tight, very specific, and very clear. So you want to keep getting that closing tighter and tighter and tighter. And it's not so that it works better. It's actually to create better clarity with your prospect, with your customer, so they know, one, it's unquestionable that they've closed, they've signed up, they've bought, they've agreed to take the next step, and you're really clear as to, hey, I need you to do this, this, and this so that we can go to the next step. And then that's the last phase. The phase 11 is really, again, this is something that needs to be on your script, ready to go, the next steps. And that needs to be really clear. The other thing that you should have is templates ready to go, right? So once we get to that close and we're moving into phase 11, we've got the next steps. You should be very clear with the prospect, with the closed client, what's going to happen next. You're going to tell them verbally, and then you're going to follow up instantly, because you're using a template. You're going to follow up instantly with a written, well-documented version of those next steps, and then probably also text message as well, just to let them know, okay, got everything. Here's the next thing you need to do. Here's the next steps. And then ideally, the rest of those next steps, you're leveraging or getting some help from your sales automation to keep that process on track all the way to, in the case of loans and insurance, all the way to that sort of final closing where there's some time gaps, there's some paperwork that has to be done. So you want to make sure that as much as possible that happens right on time, and automation can help you with that. So hope, as always, this has been helpful. I encourage you to subscribe, reach out to me with questions, or drop them in the comments. I'll actively help you as much as possible to get you to a more successful sales call. We'll see you next time.